Welcome to Beyond Revenue, Narratives of Revenue Leaders. Frederick, I'm very happy to have you today in the show because the topic is the evolving role of the CRO and lessons from a 4 times Chief Revenue Officer. And that's why I'm very happy and proud that you joined my show. We met a couple of weeks ago on a common panel, and I think we had a very good exchange, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. But I would say you are best giving a background about yourself. So who are you and what are you doing?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Michael. And really, really happy to be here. I always love talking shop with us revenue folks out there. So as you mentioned, 4 times CRO, 20 years in payments and various GTM roles. But the last 4, I've been brought in to really kind of put together the model of how a business is going to go into a market. So typically I oversee both sales and marketing and partnerships and enablement and all these capabilities to try to find that right formula to optimize your acquisition funnel and make sure that the customer is taken care of at the end of the day. It's been quite fun. I always love owning sales and marketing because you activate both sides of your brain. You get to think about the creative, how to relate to people, which is a critical part of any really good sales models. You really should understand people. Sometimes sales go right to the numbers and the metrics, which, kind of miss the point. But there's nothing like sales and being in the trenches and just, going for that score at the end of the day. So I've worked at a number of companies in payments from the early days of PayPal, jumped back to eBay to lead sales there, then Western Union, and then 3 startups after that. After Western Union, I went to work for Veeam, which is a cross-border AP/AR startup backed by Kleiner Perkins and Goldman Sachs. Then to Neum, which is a global B2B payments platform, operated out of Singapore, but with the major headquarters out there in San Francisco. I built out that global team all around the world. And then more recently at Trustly, where I delved back into open banking, which is America's attempt to try to get bank-to-bank payments finally off the ground without cards or other nuances. It's some good days, some bad days. But right now I'm advising. I'm going out there and helping other people really help build their engine and find a way to get to market better.
Super interesting and very interesting journey. And I would say, as you went through, I would say various go-to-market teams, right? From the smaller companies in the startup world to the now very well-known big ones. Maybe let's share what's one crazy growth story which still sticks today?
You won't believe it because they don't have a reputation for crazy growth, but I'm going to say Western Union, right?
Really?
I have all these startups from these big investors, and I'm going to go back to this 100-something-year-old company. And I'll tell you why. The situation was very unique. Western Union established. Everyone who's done a cross-border payment probably knows about them and their cash network. They tapped me, it must have been 2011, so a while ago now, and said, hey, we're trying to figure out this digital thing. Well, digital had been around a while by that point, but they had a flatline business, wasn't going anywhere. And Hickman, the CEO, really had a good vision of saying, we're going to just create a whole new division and let these guys go at it. Like it had been done in other companies before. We're going to have a digital department. So I worked under Khalid Falahi, and we went from nobody. Like it was nothing there. The site was horrible. It was Khalid, who later would become president of Western Union, me and 4 guys from Denver. That's how I always kind of nicknamed its initial crew. We created a 200-person organization around the world managing 35 different sites. Oh. Went from like the last place or third place in all these countries to the first place, had all kinds of marketing and content renovations, built out partnerships overnight with some of the bigger hospitality names. It was fast and furious and fun and made an impact. Like we went from a $100 million flatline business to a $400 million business in 4 years.
Wow, so, not bad.
Nice
and quite fast for such a company as well.
Yes, definitely.
Nice. Interesting. Let's dive in quickly on the startup some wild moments, right? I guess we all know it. There's always some stories which are unexpected. What's one very funny story you experienced?
I thought about this one because there's something I could go earlier back. I started with the payment stories, but I was at VoIP before that, Voice over Internet Protocol. There was a time where our servers went down at a blackout in our area, and we had to go find generators and figure out where the gas. That was crazy. Like, that goes back to early. But I think more recently, and something that we can fortunately, unfortunately relate to was my time at Veeam, where I had a big sales team up in Canada. And this is in 2020. This is in February 2020. And all the news on COVID started going around. So, well, I better get up there and just check in with the team and make sure they're okay. And I'd get in there and I joked at the first day, like, oh, I'm the last American to get into Canada. This is late February 2020, right? And, trying to make sure everything's all set, everyone's good. And just joking like, hey, let me make sure we have processes in place in case like we can't visit each other for a while. As each day went by, the news got worse and worse and worse. And suddenly, like 4 days in, it's like, I got to go home. And I got to get home now. I almost was the last American in Canada. Pre-COVID. It was a little bit of a crazy time out there. But there's a number of other crazy things you could think about, building websites quickly and setting up sales team in countries you never visited with people you've never met. Startups are fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get started with the changing CRO role, because I think from your experience, right, you've led GTM teams from startup side, from the global player side over quite a decent period of time. How did it evolve, the CRO role, and what new expectations shaping this role as well?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And when all the CROs get together, like we've done recently, we always kind of talk about one of the big challenges. Do people want a CRO or do they want like a VP or SVP of sales? And I think 10 years ago, they were interchangeable. They're like, hey, let's put like the CRO title on that and like just call it a C-level, even though it's the same guy. Things have definitely changed there. The CRO definitely has a more, I'd call it strategic backing to it, which doesn't mean like the SVP of sales doesn't do strategy. They're also involved. But there's more recipe mixing. I always joke that CRO stands for Chief Recipe Officer, where you have to really understand your market and do more both internal to your team and external to the rest of the cross-functional teams, alignment to make sure everything is working well and that you've done the math and set up the systems all the way around for it to operate. There's a lot of operational elements in a CRO world, more than I think SVP of sales. I mean, you still got to show up. You still got to go help close the deals. But the CEOs really want you to make sure you built a machine that works within the company more so than in the past.
And I think getting your math right? I think that's, frankly, I quite often see lacking in this, in the companies. Yeah. And I would say the biggest challenge here of the role is to understand the interdependencies between all those roles involved, right? And for that, if you have mapped it and then started really understanding, then you're getting your math right. Before that, it's quite difficult to do. What is your experience there? How do you approach this topic?
Oh, definitely. So look, I keep giving you the prequel to the prequel to the prequel. Before I got in sales and marketing, I was in finance. Like I was in operations and finance. It was only when I went to business school that I said, I don't want to count the money. I want to make the money. So I brought that analytical framework from those days into my 20-something years of being a sales and marketing leader out there. Has to be there. Like I've always preached the beauty of having a full funnel model. A lot of people will hesitate because they're like, well, we don't know yet. Especially in startups, like we don't know yet. Put a placeholder there. See if you hit that placeholder. That's kind of what
Absolutely.
you do in engineering, right? As you're developing things, like, okay, here's an assumption. I'll get back to it and get the details of it later. But without that, you're absolutely right. You float. If you don't have numbers in there, if you don't have some kind of assumptions that you're trying to hit, it's always a subjective view of whether you're on the right track or not. So I 100% agree with you that that's a critical component to making everything work right.
And it's even hard to make changes, right? If you don't understand the interdependency, you change something, but you realize quite late that the change had an impact on a later stage of the journey. And to holistically optimize, which in my opinion is the major responsibility of the CRO, right? To holistically lead and optimize. The independency, in my opinion, is crucial to have success, right? And see it.
You know, I think there's another big component on this. When you do all the math, when you actually do all the work, you see where your troubles lie. It's easy for a CFO or a CEO or investor to go like, okay, you're here, now get up to here. And then you're given your limitations, don't hire anymore or hire this much, only this much more marketing budget or that much. And you get to a point where there's going to be a metric that starts bulging and you're like, we've got a problem. Like if you want to get to there, we need to address that. If you don't do the math, if you don't do all this work, you're just going to walk into it blindly and then hit that wall when it's too late. 3,
And you
6,
don't
9.
have the arguments. Or you can say,
Yeah,
look, we understand the dependencies here. This input comes to this output because over the funnel, over the entire journey, I can show you how it works. And then
yeah.
just hiring will not solve the problem. And that's why I think that's the beauty of the role, because that makes it really interesting, in my opinion. Let's look a little bit on the broader responsibilities of a CRO, and I guess the last 2 years have brought a lot of changes to all of us, and that's the disruption of AI, or the coming of AI. What do you think? How is AI changing the way sales and marketing, sales and go-to-market teams operate? And do these AI-driven changes, do they have an impact on the CRO role on the one side? And then my third question, I know I shouldn't ask so many questions at once, but what about AI excites you the most?
Oh boy, where to start on all that? So I'll take the general, like what's changed with AI, what's exciting, what's challenging out there as well. It is funny to think about how much AI has sped up so quickly. I remember attending my first AI summit in the end of 2023, just a year and a half ago, not that long.
Mm.
Everyone scratching their head like, yeah, it may or may not work. Now, if you're a CRO without some kind of AI mandate going on inside your organization, you're out of touch. You're missing it, right? 2 areas excite me. One, of course, is when you think about anything mass production, generally content and emails. Yeah, you could get a little bit better at that. And that's table stakes. You better be doing that because you're not going to get as many people. People are going to want you to get this kind of tool stuff instead. I'll get into the traps of that later. But I love the customer research component. And I think this applies more to anything that's mid-market or enterprise level, more when you really got to understand a company, your persona as you get in there. It's so easy. This comes back to some of the concerns about just hitting replicate, rinse and repeat type of sequences and campaigns, thinking like, well, we'll just make a few modifications and try to sell it to this other customer. AI now gives you the capability to go deep into a customer strategy. Sales doesn't work. Revenue doesn't work if you're not solving problems, and not everyone's problem is the same. You have the AI world now, universe where salespeople now have the capability to go in there and bring this in. And then you tie in the other things that like record calls and give you insights to the call that help you understand whether you're on the right track with that kind of research. You now have like an army of people around you through the use of AI for every individual to be super well armed. And that's exciting and expected out of a CRO. Like you can no longer just say, hey, I don't have the people. Well, we all have the people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
You don't need to only build muscle, right? You can now really focus on things. Look, where do we want to have muscle for? And where do we want to have the digital support?
Yeah. The concern on that is 2 things. One is the laziness. Like, oh, okay. It's almost like a high schooler. I have a 17-year-old junior kid in high school. Like, it's easy to study or prepare my homework. I just chat GPT it. You can do everything you want to try to prevent it. That might work to a degree. It's not good, but it might work in school academic systems of group. It doesn't work in the sales. As a client, as a target, I don't want to receive a generic message that I could just go like, yeah, this stuff again. Because now everyone's got it. Like when AI came out, I said, great, we all have nuclear weapons. Like now what? It's great to have a superpower. But now you really got to spend more time not making false assumptions that you have it under control. You really have to now up your own game and making sure you're using that well. And that's a challenge to a CRO, right?
Yeah, even trust, right?
Yeah, we have to absorb so much more information to still get it right. Because everyone else, my competition, my peers, they have it too.
And I think we ask the AI things and it gives us an answer. Do you trust the answer or not? And I would say you trust so fast the answer. Right, and it's crazy how you get used to it, not thinking about it, or how fast you think, it's done. But this will not work, in my opinion. I think I'm totally with you. Yeah. First of all, agentic motions you need to manage as well, right? If it's a personal, and on the other side, you need to be on top of your game, right? It's just a suggestion. It's not the answer, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, so it's very odd. In some ways, it helped make a lot of details easy. But you need a very detailed manager now to spot where the problems are, right? Absolutely. Now that you're no longer reviewing 2 paragraphs of a text email, you have to now read a couple thousand pages of content or word content. Well, you still better pay attention or else you're going to look foolish and it's going to backfire a little bit. So I think it's really going to drive people to have even better teams, maybe smaller, but really smart people, really good, detailed folks on the controls of the devices.
Absolutely. Because this is what excites me, right? Because right, we try to advocate constantly that look, growth is detail, right? It is science. As better you detail it out holistically, as more success you're gonna have. Because with a lot of focus on detail, your system setup's gonna be better. Your sales excellence works better. You generate better data, but it's the groundwork you need to do, and everybody not many people want to do the groundwork, right? They want to jump right away to the next step without having their basics in. And now the AI doesn't work
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
without really structured and detailed management. And now they slowly understand, look, in order to have success, I not just need to set up my Salesforce, I really need to plan it through to really define where the AI or where the agent can help me here and what I need to do. And I think that's exciting because it will show the companies who really have success, and they're gonna have success by focusing on the good things or on the details. I'm totally with you.
I'm really amazed when I see someone do it right. And I talked to one of my colleagues who's a CRO at another orchestration startup. Like, wow, you really have sharpened up your content. It's great. It's engaging. It's right on point. And he shared like, say hi, my friend. Like I look at it and I revise it, but his stuff with his management, because he's a very detailed guy, came from a Google background. He lifted it up. You can really leverage it to be impactful. Don't get lazy once you have that tool. Stay with it. Stay in the details.
It doesn't stop, right? It's not a setup and then it stops. You set it up and then it starts.
Yeah. Right.
I always
Don't take
try
it
to
away.
make the picture of a restaurant, right? You build the restaurant, you make all your products and what the dishes you want to sell, and you hire the people, and then it opens. The work starts now, right? Which works, which way works, which product works, and
Yeah.
now you need to optimize, and that's in the end go to market as well. But let's dive in a little bit into RevOps, as you have a lot of experience here. RevOps as a strategic partner, right? So we just talked about AI, detailing it out. So given how complex in the end go-to-market motions have become, yeah, what's your take on the evolving relationship between CROs and RevOps, and how should the CRO really leverage RevOps today so to make the best out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So RevOps are my favorite people. Like that, they kind of join both sides of my brain together out there, and I bring them in. I'd say this: like a CRO should always have good instinct, good hunch. You usually have some experience, but you don't have to go figure it all out yourself. Someone else is out there to help you map your universe and figure out where your metrics. So usually, I will sit down with them, give my thoughts, my general numbers, and let RevOps go out there and bring back two things, because there's two dimensions of all this. One is like, okay, what business metrics make sense for me to do? And, I probably could suggest quite a few, but let someone else go in there. But bring back metrics that we can actually measure accurately. I think this is where a CRO loses a little bit of track. Like what systems do we have, and how are they going to measure it, and who's going to input it at the right time? These, again, going into the details, are very specific details that I don't want to spend time doing, right? I need someone to advise me. If someone's saying, hey, we're really going to understand some of the upper funnel dynamics of what's developing and who's following up on what, how. I don't want to go into the details of that. I need my revenue operations person to take that concern and go through and look at everything and see what we have, see how data is being inputted, see if it's the same system. Often it's disparate systems. Marketing's got one system, sales has another, or sales enablement or sales customer success is on something different with different programs and using different stages. I need someone to go out there and get all that stuff in there and bring that in. And then they're my hospital in some ways. They bring me all the vital signs. They let me know ahead of time, well, this is looking good and this is going bad. They don't need to get deep in the strategy, although it's great when they can. They're the ones saying your playbook is working or not working in these areas. I also like them to be sometimes the bad cop. So go in there and make sure that again, details, people go in there and enter everything correctly, make sure stuff's there, balance it, and make sure that they bring back feedback from the field of saying, this is just too much input for me to really work day to day. But keep that out of my hair too. I just want to get to my numbers, read the system, align to my strategy, make modifications, as opposed to having to spend all my time going underneath the hood and trying to figure out why is this broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bad cop, that's a good point to make because I usually use them as my go-to-market controlling as well, right? We have defined everything, we have mapped it out, and somebody needs to control it besides the emotional leader on the team. So I usually use them and say, look, I want that everybody follows what we have defined, not only in the deal progression, not only in the qualification, but really follows all the rules of engagement SOPs. And if not, it should pop up because like this, we can foster sales excellence, and with sales excellence, we foster data, and then we can look at together at the data. And I think very good RevOps makes the life of a CRO so much better because it's so fast, right? If somebody's good and you know how to, they know how to react on what you want, and they understand what you want, and they can take care. This is complete different operations than let's
Uh,
say a junior RevOps who is used as a better admin.
Yeah, no. I mean, having a great RevOps person next to you is just like having it's chief of staff in many ways, right? Like you're making sure
Absolutely.
everything that you want to do is going out there. Remember what we said was a CRO to start this whole conversation with. I have my mind not only in trying to go in the market, but what is the operational support going to be required? Product, what are you doing over here to align with all? I got my mind in so many places. I need that RevOps person to go back to and say, hey, your go-to-market strategy is being executed well here and not here. And we need to find out more about this space. That's my happy
Yeah,
place.
absolutely. Yeah, mine as well. But it's a good topic. Let's talk about a little bit about metrics. So I think right there's so many. I see now KPIs used as more as a name for numbers, right? There are so many numbers out there, and then I see a lot of companies taking everything as a KPI. So, what are the metrics that really matter for you as a CRO?
Changes from case to case. Like I
Yeah,
said, and
fair.
doing P2P, B2B to C, B to SMBs, all these other ones. One big one for me, and this is again having the benefit of managing sales and marketing, is that MQL to SQL motion, right? Because this is where the worlds collide. Your head of marketing is out thinking they're doing great stuff. Sales is thinking, I've got to go do this all myself practically, right? You get this combination and both sides get happy and are working efficiently. Because if you're not having good leads generated from your marketing going into your sales, then this is wasted. Maybe you had the wrong scope for your marketing. Maybe they got to be doing something else other than lead generation. But typically, that's like big role of that department. So I keep an eye on that. Good RevOps person, I can go into details because there's always a finger pointing like, bad leads, bad follow-up. I just want to know if it's the right market. I'm really interested in product market fit. And that's usually like a good early indicator for me. The second one is, it's an odd one, but I always love getting it. If I define my sales stages right, I love my days and stage metrics, not any particular stage. I just want to see like, when does it go from like 20 or 30 to 180 to 200? And what can we do there? What is the conversion rate, not of the whole funnel, but of that area? So combining days and stage with conversion next stage, I spend a lot of time talking with both not only my RevOps person, but with my sales leaders too, to get into. To me, that's a big heartbeat.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, right? I really look at the conversion from MQL to SQL because I think it's a crucial part, and that you lose a lot of, right? There you lose a lot of leads, and you need to really focus on it to make marketing effective because we don't want to have just leads generated. And what I usually look at is not only the days in stage, I want to have a stage progression, right? Predefined expected TMA, but when does the conversion rate drop? Right? When you look at in time, because quite often when we come in, we see quite good pipeline coverage. It looks fine, but we're not hitting numbers. And then I was like, so what's the case? And then no, but we have a deal. And you see, right, the sales, they love to hunt ghosts, right? Because they always believe they will get this deal in. So the first thing when I go into a company, I said, calculate when does the conversion rate drop, and drop tremendously. And then I can say, look here, I don't know, 150 days, it's below 1%. You can kill everything. Everything afterwards, we kill and we strategize now for 150 or 120 or 180 days. And everything needs to be closed within this because afterwards it's a hunting a ghost. And it's quite eye-opening for management as well because there you can see where it's really dead, right? It's like, look, I'm most probably going
Pipeline
to
little
clean your
small.
pipeline out tremendously. Coverage going to look much less, but the coverage is not the coverage we have. That's why time and stage is something I really look into it. Quite
You know who
interesting.
really likes that? Your chief product officer. They need that. Otherwise, they think like, I guess we're doing the right thing, but you might be building for the wrong vertical, the wrong use case. You really got to get there and take a look and go like, this is what's working for us out there. And, I think a cousin to that is time to revenue and scaling after signing as well. Too often, CROs, we just focus on like, hey, contract, win, but revenue matters at the end of the day. Now, if you have a SaaS model, you're going to get your revenue, but even there, upsell, cross-sell, there are things and motions you have to understand to get your revenue numbers. And in payments in particularly, in fintech, a lot of times it's transactional revenue. And there's been so many times we struggled with just like, we had the contract, why aren't they going live? And we didn't spend enough time talking with the customer as it revealed, going deeper into how long does it take to get this? What's your testing use case like? Let's get ahead and have an A/B strategy and be ahead of it. Those later metrics really help you as well focus on where you can improve your game.
Yeah, I would even say quite often we don't really see a proper land and expand strategy, right? Because they focus so much on the first sign. They try to get every product in they can get. And quite often it's like, look, let's from a certain, right, let's say in enterprise sales, let's get one product in where we have the biggest impact. And then let's strategize together how to grow the next 3 years to proper revenue. And quite often this focus is not there. Yeah, we try to get everything in the beginning. And then the risk of failing is quite in two ways. Signing the deal is harder because the deal is bigger and it's hard to justify. And really succeeding in the impact is harder for the teams because they slowly ramp up. What's your take there? Do you see a lot of strategizing on land and expand?
Not enough, right? Like it's this cold handoff. And you learn, even though I've been doing this for years, you learn every time. And I think that's one area I would want to focus on more in whatever I help with or get involved with next is there's always the baton pass. That's hard to get right between sales and customer success. Now there's a lot more models and people trying to own it all the way across and just kind of everyone gets a certain portfolio. You lose when you get one. But you really need to have a lot of communication, more communication. Absolutely. And thinking through like, okay, bring the customer success person a little bit early if you're going to do this handoff. Have them understand. And then as a team, really kind of dissect what are we going to do now and when are we going to introduce the rest later. Because all the stuff you're selling, it's not like you're just going to push it on them. You're solving a problem. That customer success person isn't there early enough to help strategize their problem solving. They'll have to go figure it out again and strategize again after the fact, which is wasted time and money and effort, right?
Absolutely. For everyone. Yeah, I would say I really like to build an operating model with account management and CSM together, right? So we build an operating model, how we speak with the client, when do we upsell, on what numbers do we need to achieve in order to have a conversation about it? Yeah. Not right, we want to speak with them in 6 months. No. What's the product number? What's the impact we generate? And you can read it out, but quite often the operating model is quite separate, right? We have the commercial team and then we have the CSM team, and they quite often work as two hands, but not as one. And I think there the CRO comes in again, right? As better the person aligns there and says, look, signing is one part, but the customer lifetime is most probably 90% of the time. The signing is 10% of the time. Let's focus on after the closed one. What can we do?
Yes, agree.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the aligning, right? Because you talked a lot about sales and marketing, and now we quickly touched customer success. I think go-to-market aligning in theory, talking about is quite easy. In practice, it's much harder. So maybe from your experience, how can you create true alignment through all these functions?
So again, being kind of left brain, right brained, I always loved a story that holds everything together. And all the people that worked for me in the past know I'm a storyteller. I'll just get in there and I'll either share stories from my past or when I'm talking with the client, I'll bring them stories. But it can be very powerful. And that's because if you can't tell the story of your company's vision, if you can't tell the story of what your acquisition strategy is, and I'm not talking about numbers, like we got to hit here, we got to hit there, that will be there. But if you can't put the context around it, then you constantly have to remind people why those metrics matter. If you're a good storyteller to your client or to your employees, they can fill in the gaps, right? Particularly when it comes to being a CRO and making sure your organization is running to the model you want. Tell them why you're emphasizing a certain change in direction on vertical, or why marketing is doing something, or why you're changing things. Give them the story behind it, and then show the goals, right? Right, and then the goals they impact, they matter more to them, and all that, and it helps people talk to each other. Like, oh, I know what your mission is now, and I get it. I could help you align and support whatever you're doing as well. Then you got to do the numbers.
True. Makes it more tangible. That's nice.
It definitely helps, I find, right? And perhaps I even do it to a fault, but to me, if someone can repeat my story, then I know that they're going to come back with the right decision at the end of the day. But I can't say that without the whole left brain side of then map it and measure it. You got to have those numbers there, and you got to make those things public to let people know what's working and what's not. And don't hide from it. If there's a red, keep it a red and say, okay, we got to work on this, and we're going to come back with a solution. Celebrate your greens, go nuts, have a few fun. If you don't have the measurement behind the story, then your story is for naught. Your story is going to keep it all changing too fast.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's look ahead a little bit. Yeah. So the future of GTM leadership. We spoke about it, AI, new technologies. They all reshape go-to-market teams. And I think we spoke about as well, right? Qualities and detailedness will separate the truly great CROs from the sales leads or just the leader. So what's next in the next 5 years? What's your take on this?
I think both in AI helping the operations, but also changing how you go to market, changing how companies operate. CROs in many C-levels are going to have enormous, what I'll call absorption power. You're going to have to know a lot about different things because it's going to be assumed you can find out about it. I'm not just talking about all the details of what's happening from an operational component of your business, but what's happening in the market, what's changing in the product front. You and I have talked before about just how important product and sales partnerships are. You're going to have to be up to speed in a lot of these other areas so that you're not going in there just blindly selling. You can have some good advice on what you're going against and give guidance to your CPO on what's really there. Legal and regulatory changes. I think it's almost nonstop education going on for the CRO, which is why you need that revenue operations person making sure everything else is clicking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the best people are going to be great researchers. It's a little scary because we all have been CROs. We all get bogged in the details. We all have a commission plan to review and update. Like, wait, why is that number there? And what happened to this project? But the best will be the ones who can absorb and then create and be extremely organized. And with all that input coming in there, you could get scattered quite quickly. As CROs get more and more stretched to do more and have an opinion and execute in more areas, you better be disciplined on what you're going to do when, what you're not going to do, and be able to communicate that to people. And there's a number of ways, a number of tools to go do that we won't have time here to do. But I think that will be critical. We're all becoming superhuman CROs. That's going to be the requirement.
Yeah, but I truly believe it has been complex, and I think quite often the complexity has been underestimated, and it's not getting easier. Yeah? There's much more. Obviously, some things getting easier, but there's much more focus on holding the things together because there's so much data available and the speed. Yeah, everything is operating. Either you hold it in very detail together, or it just falls apart. And I think that's why I totally agree with you here. The superhuman is a good example. But let's do some career reflection because right, we have a lot of people in the audience who are becoming the future CROs. You have served long years as a CRO, right? Different companies, different sizes. So what's your couple of advices you give to CROs stepping up in the role the first time?
Why? I joke a lot with my salespeople because they'll come up like, I want to be a CRO one day. Like, you have more potential to make more money doing what you're doing than coming
Yeah.
over here. And your life is pure. You're on pursuit. You're in the game. You're not dealing with like commission that, legal that, all this. And your average tenure is 1.5 years, right? Doesn't deter them. They want to be a CRO. Well, God bless them, because it is a very fun role. It is a unique role where you have to do all the things that we've talked about, orchestrate and bring a lot of things together. My advice to them, and it kind of echoes a lot of the things I'm saying here, is don't just get stuck in thinking about your sales metrics, right? Think about the bigger picture. Think about where your product lies in the market. Do your research more on your competition and your clients, and that will make you better. If you want to be a VP of sales, be a VP of sales. If you want to be a CRO, you're going to have to do more. And when you do it, and if you like these kind of more complex things to go figure out, it'll be incredibly enjoying. But you will be leaving the sales behind a bit. You're going to be there when your team needs you. You got to step up and help close the deal. But if you're a salesperson who loves to hunt, who loves being in there, then don't become a CRO. There's a lot of other avenues. Be the puzzle solver if you want to be a CRO. Be the guy that says, oh, you got to get the revenue to there. I'll figure it out. Make that career choice first, and then go do your homework.
Frederick, beautiful ending words. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed the discussion. I think I learned a lot in the last 40 minutes. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, no problem, Michael. Always enjoy doing the things, and always great catching up with you as well.